The invitation arrived on cream vellum. The Thompson family cordially invites you to the Annual Financial Leaders Gala. My parents' signature event at the country club. 300 guests, investment bankers, hedge fund managers, private equity partners. My invitation had a handwritten note from my father. Natalie, given the guest list and professional nature of this year's event, we think it's best if you attend the cocktail hour only. Your sister will be introducing several hedge fund partners, and we want to maintain a professional atmosphere. I sat in my office on the 43rd floor of One Financial Plaza, looking out over the city. I was 32 and Executive Vice President of Acquisitions at Sterling Capital Management, overseeing approximately $8 billion in bank and financial services mergers. Last month, I'd negotiated the acquisition of 3 regional banks, including First Harbor Bank, where my parents held their accounts and investment portfolio. My family thought I was still working in finance administration. My older sister Victoria was 28, recently promoted to junior analyst at a mid-tier hedge fund. My parents treated it like she'd been appointed Secretary of the Treasury. Every family dinner revolved around Victoria's career, her client meetings, her presentations, the senior partners she was building relationships with. When I mentioned my work, my mother would smile politely and change the subject. "That's nice, dear. Victoria, tell us more about your investment strategy." The gala was in 2 weeks. My father had been planning it for months, using it to showcase Victoria's rising career. The guest list included several executives I worked with regularly, including the CEO of First Harbor Bank, whose institution I'd just acquired. My younger brother James texted, "Did you see Dad's note? He's literally excluding you from a finance event while bragging about Victoria's entry-level analyst position." I looked at the merger documents on my desk. The First Harbor acquisition would close the day before the gala. As part of integration, we'd implement compliance protocols, including temporary holds on large accounts during system migration. My parents' accounts at First Harbor totaled approximately $3 million. Their investment portfolio, retirement accounts, operating funds. All at the bank I now controlled. "I'll handle it," I texted James. What I didn't tell him, I'd scheduled the First Harbor account migration for Friday afternoon, the day before the gala. My parents would receive notification that their accounts were temporarily frozen during transition. Standard procedure for all major accounts during acquisition integration. They just didn't know their daughter had signed the authorization documents. The next 2 weeks, my parents' group chat exploded with gala preparations. Photos of Victoria's custom gown, the catering menu, the chamber orchestra. My mother posted constantly about celebrating our daughter's success in finance and surrounding ourselves with true industry leaders. My father wrote, "This year's gala represents decades building our reputation in the financial community. We're so proud to have Victoria representing the next generation." Victoria posted a selfie with her hedge fund boss. "Excited to introduce my mentor to my parents' network. #finance, #networking, #grateful daughter." No one mentioned me. I was the person-shaped hole in their financial success narrative. My colleague Robert knocked on my office door Wednesday before the gala. "Natalie, I saw your parents' names on the First Harbor VIP account list. They're hosting that finance gala this weekend, right?" "That's right. Are you attending? Several of our clients will be there." He paused. "Your father told me he was excited to introduce his daughter, who works in finance." I assumed he meant you, but then he started talking about hedge funds and I realized he meant Victoria. "My parents don't know what I actually do," I said simply. Robert stared. "You're an executive VP overseeing $8 billion in acquisitions. You just negotiated 3 major bank mergers. How do they not know? They decided years ago I work in finance administration. Every time I try explaining my actual position, someone interrupts or changes the subject. Well, they're about to figure it out. The First Harbor CEO specifically requested you attend the gala to discuss the acquisition transition with key clients. You're representing Sterling at the main reception." I'd been planning to skip the gala. Now I reconsidered. "What time?" 6 p.m. "The main reception, not the cocktail hour." Robert grinned. "This is going to be interesting." Friday afternoon, the First Harbor acquisition officially closed. I signed the final documents at 3 p.m. By 4 p.m., system migration had begun. By 5 p.m., Automated notifications went out to all major account holders. Your accounts are temporarily frozen during system integration. Normal access will resume within 48 to 72 hours. My phone rang at 5:47 p.m. My father voiced tight with panic. Natalie, something's wrong with our bank accounts. First Harbor froze everything. Checking, savings, investment portfolio. We have the gala tomorrow. We need access. Can you help us figure out what's happening? It sounds like the bank was acquired. That's standard procedure during acquisition integration. All major accounts get frozen temporarily while systems merge. Acquired? By whom? Why weren't we notified? Acquisition announcements went out 3 weeks ago. It was in all the financial news. Sterling Capital Management bought First Harbor and 2 other regional banks. Silence. Then, Sterling? That's a major investment firm. Why didn't you tell us this was happening? I tried to mention it at dinner 2 weeks ago. You told me you didn't want to hear about administrative banking details and asked Victoria about her hedge fund presentation. More silence. Can you help us get the accounts unfrozen? We have payments scheduled for the gala, the caterer, the orchestra, the venue deposit. The freeze is part of federal compliance requirements during bank acquisitions. No exceptions regardless of account holder. It'll be resolved in 48 to 72 hours. Natalie, this is serious. This is our reputation. I understand it's inconvenient, but this is standard acquisition protocol. You'll have access Monday at the latest. He hung up without saying goodbye. My mother called 10 minutes later. Your father said you can't help with the accounts. But surely you must know someone at Sterling. Can't you call them? I work at Sterling Capital, Mom. I'm the Executive Vice President of Acquisitions. I signed the documents that authorized this acquisition. The silence lasted several seconds. You work at Sterling Capital? Since when? 6 years. I've been trying to tell you. But Victoria said Sterling Capital is one of the biggest investment firms in the region. $8 billion in my division alone. I oversee bank and financial services acquisitions. First Harbor was one of 3 banks I acquired last month. My mother's voice came out strangled. You acquired our bank? You froze our accounts. I acquired First Harbor as part of market expansion strategy. The account freeze is standard federal protocol. It applies to all major accounts, including yours. I paused. If you'd attended any of my presentations or asked about my actual job, you would have known this was coming. She hung up without responding. Saturday evening, I dressed for the gala. Designer suit, understated jewelry, the platinum watch I'd received as a bonus after closing a complex acquisition. I looked exactly like what I was, a senior financial executive comfortable in any professional setting. I arrived at the country club at 6 p.m. The ballroom was spectacular, crystal chandeliers, flowers everywhere, chamber orchestra playing softly. 300 people in formal attire, champagne flowing, the cream of the city's financial establishment. My parents stood near the entrance, looking strained. My father's smile was fixed and tight. My mother kept checking her phone anxiously. Victoria stood with her hedge fund boss, looking polished and confident. They saw me walk in. My father's expression shifted to confusion. Natalie? I thought we agreed cocktail hour only. Change of plans. Sterling Capital asked me to represent the firm at the main reception. We have several First Harbor clients here who want to discuss the acquisition transition. My father's face went pale. You're representing Sterling Capital? I'm an executive vice president there. Yes, I represent the firm at these events. The First Harbor CEO Richard Morrison appeared at my elbow. Natalie. Perfect timing. I want to introduce you to some key clients who have questions about the merger. He turned to my father. Thompson, thank you for hosting. Having Natalie here to discuss the Sterling acquisition is incredibly valuable. She's been instrumental in making this transition smooth. My father opened and closed his mouth. No words came. Richard led me toward a group of executives, bank presidents, investment managers, people whose accounts I'd been managing for years. We talked shop, discussing integration timelines, compliance protocols, market positioning. People treated me exactly as they should, as an expert and authority, someone whose decisions affected billions of dollars. My family watched from a distance, slowly understanding what they'd missed. Victoria approached after 15 minutes, confidence evaporating. Natalie, I don't understand. You're an executive vice president at Sterling Capital. Have been for 3 years. Senior vice president for 3 years before that. But you never talked about it being this important. I tried to talk about it. Multiple times. You and Mom and Dad kept dismissing it as administrative work or changing the subject to discuss your analyst position. I looked at her steadily. The information was always available. You just decided it wasn't worth paying attention to. My mother had joined us, mascara slightly smudged. Natalie, everyone keeps asking about your work at Sterling. They're asking why we didn't mention you're an executive vice president. What am I supposed to say? You could tell them the truth, that you didn't know because you never asked. My father appeared, expression mixing shame and defensiveness. You should have told us you were this senior at Sterling. How were we supposed to know? I told you I was promoted to executive VP. You said, that's nice, and asked Victoria about her quarterly review. I invited you to a panel I moderated at the Financial Services Conference. You said you were too busy but had time to attend Victoria's office happy hour that same day. I met his eyes. The information was always there, Dad. You chose not to see it. Richard Morrison returned with 2 more executives. Thompson, I have to say your daughter's work on the First Harbor acquisition has been exceptional. The integration strategy she designed is being used as a model for our other regional acquisitions. My father's face showed genuine embarrassment at his own ignorance about his daughter's career. The gala continued, but the energy had shifted. People kept approaching me to discuss the Sterling acquisition, to ask questions about integration, to introduce themselves and their firms. My parents' celebration of Victoria's career became a showcase of my expertise. My parents called Sunday morning, both on speakerphone. My father's voice was subdued. Natalie, we owe you an apology. We failed to recognize what you've accomplished. You failed to ask. You failed to listen when I tried to tell you. You failed to value my work because it didn't fit the narrative you wanted. My mother spoke, voice thick. Everyone at the gala kept asking about you. About your work. About why we'd never mentioned having a daughter in such a senior position. It was humiliating. Now you know how I felt every time you dismissed my career as administrative work while praising Victoria's entry-level position. Silence. My father tried again. How do we fix this? You start by actually asking about my work instead of assuming you know what I do. You start by valuing expertise even when it doesn't come with the exact title or company name you expect. The accounts unfroze Monday morning as scheduled. My parents' payments processed, their social standing intact. But something had broken that weekend. They started asking about my work. Real questions, genuine interest. They attended a conference panel I moderated. They read articles about Sterling's acquisition strategy that quoted me. My father wrote me a letter apologizing for failing to recognize the magnitude and importance of my career. I kept my accounts at First Harbor after the Sterling acquisition. Business decisions and family drama were separate things. But I never forgot the gala where my parents excluded me from the main event because I wasn't a financial leader, while I literally controlled their bank accounts. Some families celebrate your success from the beginning. Others need their accounts frozen to understand what you actually do. I'd learned which kind I had. And I'd learned that sometimes the most effective response to being underestimated isn't anger or confrontation. Sometimes it's simply doing your job so well that reality becomes undeniable. Even when that reality freezes your parents' bank accounts the day before their society gala. My parents wanted a gala for financial leaders only. They got one. They just didn't realize their daughter was the leader everyone actually wanted to talk to. Victoria and I had coffee 3 weeks after the gala. She looked different, less polished, more genuine. I need to apologize, she said quietly. I got so caught up in being the successful one that I never asked about your career. And I liked being the one Mom and Dad bragged about. I didn't want to share that spotlight. You can still be proud of your work, I told her. You don't have to diminish yourself. But you also can't let Mom and Dad diminish me to make you look better. She nodded, eyes wet. Fair. For what it's worth, my boss asked me at the gala why I never mentioned my sister was an executive VP at Sterling. He said it made me look either dishonest or oblivious. Neither is good for someone trying to build credibility in finance. What did you tell him? The truth. That I genuinely didn't know because our family never asked you. She looked down at her coffee. He told me that was worse. That a good analyst pays attention to everything, especially things happening right in front of them. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. My parents made efforts. My father started introducing me accurately at social events. My daughter Natalie, executive vice president at Sterling Capital. My mother forwarded me articles about financial acquisitions, asking if I'd been involved. They attended my next conference presentation sitting in the front row actually listening. But some things couldn't be undone. The years of dismissal, the casual way they'd erased my achievements to elevate Victoria's, the gala invitation that told me I wasn't important enough for the main event. Those scars remained. James told me that at a recent family dinner someone asked about my work. My father had launched into a detailed explanation of acquisition strategy, clearly having researched it thoroughly. It was weird, James said. Like he was trying to prove he'd always known what you did. Revisionist history, I said. It's easier than admitting he was wrong. 6 months after the gala, I was promoted to Senior Vice President of Strategic Acquisitions. The announcement made the Wall Street Journal. My parents framed the article. They hung it in their home office, right next to Victoria's college diploma and her hedge fund employee photo. As if they'd been proud all along. As if they hadn't excluded me from their society gala because I wasn't a financial leader. I didn't correct them when they showed it to guests. I didn't point out the irony. I'd learned that some people only rewrite history once they can no longer deny the present. My bank still held their accounts. My signature still appeared on documents that affected their financial lives. And every time they logged into their banking app, they saw the Sterling Capital logo. A small, constant reminder of the daughter they'd underestimated. Some lessons are expensive. Theirs cost them a frozen account and a humiliating gala. Mine cost me years of being invisible in my own family. But at least I'd learned to stop seeking validation from people determined not to see me. I'd learned my worth wasn't determined by whether my parents recognized it. And I'd learned that sometimes, the best response to exclusion is simply showing up anyway, and letting your work speak louder than their doubts ever could.